Hello, you're watching Ellie from Ellymentry Papercrafting. I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator here in the UK. So as it's still July, I thought, I would do the Christmas in July thing. I have made a couple of others and I haven't filmed them. But today I'm going to be using the Designer Tags dies, which I purchased a month or so ago. These are really, really versatile, really beautiful. You can do so much with them. This is my first play around with them, so I'm sure I'm going to get a lot more fun from them. So let's start and I'll show you what I've got in mind. So I've taken a piece of Evening Evergreen cardstock. I've cut it at 5 3/4 inches and 11.5 inches, scored at 5 3/4. So that gives me a 5 3/4 inch square card base. Now from the 6-inch square DSP, it's called Lights Aglow, and there are absolutely loads of designs, 48 sheets in here, and as you can see, they're all gold foiled on one side and then plain designs on the other. Oh, that's my card base. Evening Evergreen and Soft Succulent here, which is why I've chosen the Evening Evergreen. You've got some black and white, lovely bokeh there. And then you've got the Evening Evergreen, Cherry Cobbler, Soft Succulent, Very Vanilla. And those are the colours that run through the whole collection. These are gorgeous papers, absolutely gorgeous papers. And I don't throw away my scraps. You will see that there are lots of videos using scraps, and you can create some stunning cards with those. So the two pieces of Designer Series paper I've chosen today are the red one with the tiny little stars. Bring that up a little bit so you can see. And then this is the tiny little dots with a bit of gold in as well. I thought they would work well together. Now, as you know, I don't like to waste card. So I'm going to, or paper, so I'm going to gut this one because this is going to sit on top. So we're not going to see any of that, any of this underneath. So I'm going to do my usual bit with my trimmer. It doesn't take a minute, so I will show you just in case you haven't seen it. So I find it easier to use my trimmer facing this way when I'm doing this, so that I can clearly see the marks on my trimmer blade. So I put this at about 1/2 inch in here. Then before I close it down, I move the blade down to the 1/2 inch mark here, and I'm going to cut down to the 5 inch mark. And because I'm seeing it this way, I can see exactly when this marker falls on the 5 inch mark. Lift it up. Now that cutter blade won't go anywhere. Bring it back to the 1/2 inch mark here. Put it down and it will still be on 5. And I move it up to the 1/2 inch. Then I turn it just 90 degrees this time. Bring it back to that 1/2 inch mark. Back down to the 5, leave it there, turn it 90 degrees, back onto the 1/2 inch mark here, it's still on the 5, back up to the 1/2 inch, and that neatly cuts out a square, and that piece I can use again. So the next thing to do is to stick that piece of paper on top of the other one. And for this, I like to use my double-sided tape or tear-in tape. There are several names for this. In our catalogue, it's known as tear-in tape. And I find it's easier to use an old credit card, gift card, any kind of old card, just to press down on the end there, and that gives you a nice clean break in your tape. Make sure it's firmly adhered to your paper, and that will bring in the backing tape off much easier. Then I just take the edges off, four corners I should say. And then I can just moisten my finger and thumb, pick it up, and I can get the spacing just right all the way around. So I want it to be about 1/8 of an inch all the way around. And as long as I don't press down on the corners, when I'm just pressing here, it won't stick. When I'm sure I've got it in the right place, I then stick the corners down, gently pull these tabs, and the backing will come off the tape, like so. Now I want the pattern to fall down this way. You can of course use it the other way. This is completely up to you. So I wanted to use some ribbon on this, and I've brought in the chevron weave ribbon in the Evening Evergreen. This is a lovely ribbon. So I just needed a bit to go across there. Now from the die set, I've cut out this die here. So these are all separate dies, so you can use these all individually, but this does fit in there beautifully. So I've cut those two out together using the Cherry Cobbler cardstock, and I wanted to feed a ribbon through these two slots, but I didn't want the ribbon to show through underneath. So what I've done, I've used a craft knife to cut 2 holes in there, and all I did was place my die on there to see where I wanted the holes, and then I left this on and just used my craft knife to cut 2 slits through it. So what I'm going to do now is actually stick this down to my card base, and for that I'm going to use the Tombow multi-purpose glue. And then I'm placing it just down so that I make sure I've got my 2 score lines within my holes there. Let's give that a minute to dry off. It doesn't take long. And then got some ribbon scissors here, and I'm just going to cut that at an angle. That should help to reduce the fraying, which won't matter because this is going to be trapped underneath the top of my card, but it gives me a point here to thread into that hole, and then I can gently pull it through like so, and then back up again through the opposite slot. Okay, and make sure that lies nice and flat at the back. Okay, and then I've deliberately made it long enough to overlap, and then I can simply pull it over here and stick the back down, for which I'll use some more double-sided tape. When I'm doing something using ribbon where there's a little bit of a bump, I always make sure that I use my bone folder to really press this down. And then that will now sit on top of my card, and I always check I've got my card open correctly, and then I can pop that down onto there, leaving that nice 1/8 of an inch border all the way around again. So there's our card taking shape. So the next thing I did was to take 2 more label dies, these ones. I put it down on some cherry cobbler cardstock, run that through my die cut machine, and that cut out like so. And that gives you two. It gives you a frame and the central label with the design. And I did this again, just using this die with some evergreen, evening evergreen, and some gold. I didn't use the two together, so I didn't get a frame for these, okay? So I don't need that one. I'm going to use this one in another project, but it gives me these 3. And I thought, put these 3 together, and this makes quite a nice little sort of arrangement. And you can mix this around and have it hanging however you like. So I thought it would be quite fun to have the 2, the green and gold, just at a little angle like so, and then just throw the frame on at another angle just to give it another element, maybe like so. Okay, so that's going to go roughly there. Now I'm not using it as a label to hang on a gift, so I don't need to thread ribbon through it or anything, but there are 2 little holes in the top there for you to do so. But I am just going to line those 2 little holes up when I stick this down. And I'm going to stick the gold one down first and then stick this one on top. So I'm just having a quick little look. Now when I pick something up to put my glue on, I forget where I've had it. So I tend to get my bone folder and just point it where I want one corner. So I know that corner's going to go there. And then I'll take this and think, right, well, the other corner was sort of roughly there. And that will help me to put this back in that place I decided on. And I'm just going to put a few dots of glue on the areas on the back where there aren't any holes. So let's grab my tweezers again. Always find it easier to hold things with tweezers. So it was about there, yeah. I remember because I wanted it to go slightly on top of my label down here. And then that will go on there like that. I like that, and it shows some of the gold through. So I'm just going to put a tiny bit of glue. Now I don't want a lot of glue on here because I don't want it to be swimming about on top of the gold. So if I make sure I put some here and along the sides, that should be okay. And again, in those places where there's plenty of gaps behind the holes. So I just pop a little bit, very small about. You don't want this glue to ooze out and show on the gold. Line the hole up there at the top. Because there's not a lot of glue on there, I want to make sure it dries, so I just keep a block on it for a minute or 2 to let that just dry off. And while we're doing that, I'll just stamp my sentiment. Now the sentiment I've taken from Tidings and Trimmings. Sadly, this is a retired stamp set, and I say sadly because it was one of my favourites. But I do like this greeting, "May your days be merry and bright," and it's just the right size to fit on this particular card. I'm going to stamp it onto some basic white cardstock, and I've cut this to, I believe it was 1.5 by 1.25 inches, and that's because it will fit brilliantly, perfectly for my sentiment today. Now I'm going to bring this right down here so I've got more chance of getting it central, and I'm loading up my stamp really well with the cherry cobbler to match my cardstock, and then just stamp down. Now when you're stamping, don't press hard, you just need to give the ink a few seconds to transfer to the cardstock. I say it often, never press too hard whatever you're stamping, but particularly when you're using text. If you stamp too hard, you could distort the characters and then it's not clear to read, and that is beautiful. Now I've already, just to save some time, prepared some mounts for this. So I've taken the Evening Evergreen cardstock again, and I've made it just 1/8 of an inch bigger than this one. And then I took some of the gold foiling and made that, oh, what would that be? 3/16 of an inch bigger. So I just wanted that tiny little 1/16 of an inch border. And then if I put this on top using a bit of Tombow, and again I can leave that tiny little border all the way round, and that just makes everything pop, as they say. Move that up a little bit. By using the glue rather than a tape, you get that few seconds to move something around. Right, I think that should be stuck down now, and I'm going to pop that there. You see, it was just the right size, and then I can bring my frame and decide where I want that. So yeah, I think I'm going to pop that there. What I should have done was put some, cut this out using our double-sided adhesive sheets, and I didn't think of it at the time. It would have been very useful. So I'm just putting a very tiny bit of glue all the way, and that's why I like using this, because it's this nozzle, you cut it off with a knife until it comes out at just the right amount for speed that you like. So you can make that exactly as you want it to be. So just pop that at a different angle to the rest. Pop my block back on to keep that still. And then I'm going to keep this flat. And there we go. And that's today's card finished. And I used the Designer Designer Tags dies, some Lights Aglow Designer Series paper, and the sentiment from Tidings and Trimmings. So I hope you've liked today's card. If you have, then please give me a thumbs up to show that you like this video. If you would subscribe to my channel, I'd be really grateful if you've not already done so. In the description box below, you will find links to the current downloadable digital catalogues, and paper copies of these are also available. And you'll also see a link to my online store where you can purchase any of the items I've used today, or indeed any of the items that are available in the catalogues. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye bye.